there's so much more. I just finished episode 116. We're jumping right into 117. How can I not? We're still wrapping up Pinball Expo 2014. There's tons of other games to talk about, tons of other things happening. Let's just get right to it. Episode 117 of Coast2Coast Pinball. Let's go. Welcome to Coast2Coast Pinball. My name is still Nate Shivers, still a commentary, still a podcast, still out of quarters. Now I see why some of the other podcasts do like 3-hour shows, because there's a lot to talk about sometimes. So that's what we're doing. We are running down Pinball Expo 2014. In episode 116, if you somehow got here without listening to that, go back, go listen. We ran down The Big Lebowski from Dutch Pinball. We talked about the Walking Dead reception. We talked about The Hobbit and Jersey Jack, and we talked about Whoa Nelly Big Juicy Melons. So much more to talk about. We're going to continue on the highlights and lowlights from the new games that we saw at Pinball Expo 2014.
Highlights and lowlights.
So a year ago, Medieval Madness being remade was all anybody talked about coming out of Expo. Expo 2013 was the Medieval Madness remake show. This year, it almost felt like an afterthought. I think I already discussed on one of the episodes from the show that people were really expecting the next announcement from Planetary Pinball on what the next game to be built would be. And when that didn't happen, okay, next, move on. But Medieval Madness remade was set up. They had 3 games set up. They had all 3 of the trim, the dastardly trim situation. Everyone flipped out about this trim. You now have an option of either getting this gold trim, chrome, or black. And I'll just go on the record and say, after standing there and staring at all 3 of them and trying to figure out which one I liked the best, I think I liked black the best. Followed by chrome, followed by the gold. I just don't really care for the gold. There. I've said my piece on the trim. No more talk about the trim. The game itself, I played a couple of them. And I gotta say, they feel basically like a Medieval Madness. If you're buying this game, you're buying a Medieval Madness for all intents and purposes. Are there differences? There's small differences. I think the LED lighting looks great. If I were to find a Medieval Madness from Williams out there to buy, I would put LEDs in it, so good, done. The whole issue with them not being replaceable, it could be a small issue. They're hardwired to these boards. They've got a pretty neat way of going about that, where there's 3 individual LEDs for each insert. If one were to fail, which it likely won't, but if one were to fail, the other 2 will increase in strength. If another one fails, that single one will then increase even more in strength. So you'll always have nice color coming out of the insert. I believe Planetary Pinball Supply is very committed to service, and if you ever have a problem and need something fixed, they will help you. So yes, good. I'm fine with the LEDs. That's fine too. Somebody wrote me and asked me to look at the translite, and said, please look at the translite and tell me what you think about the translite. The translite looks good. I do believe they're printing it differently from how an original Williams translite was printed. I am not one to really dive down into that bit of minutia. They're backlighting it differently than a Williams game, because obviously we're using LEDs here, so that could change the look of it completely. But again, for all intents and purposes, looks good. Looks like Medieval Madness. Somebody asked me about the inserts. The inserts were different. I didn't notice that ever, so if they are, then I just didn't see it. I did not go over these machines with a fine-tooth comb. I just went and played them. They play good. There's a lot of talk at Expo about flipper strength, and for some reason, the 2 games that got the most kind of questions on flipper strength were The Hobbit, people feeling the flippers might be weak, and then the Medieval Madness games. And I know at one point, at least one of the Medieval Madness games had the flipper strength strengthened, because they're adjustable inside the game. So you get in these big halls with all these games sucking all that electricity. I can't help but think there is some sort of issue at times with the power. Obviously coils heat up and aren't as strong as when they're cold, but I think there's also probably some voltage issues in these buildings. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe they've got that all figured out for these shows, but I kind of think that probably has something to do with it. I don't like overly strong flippers. I think that it sort of is like training wheels a little bit, because it helps you make shots that you shouldn't have made. not to say I want it to play super, super hard, but I want it, the skill to be there. But overall, standing in front of, flipping, playing a Medieval Madness remake plays like a Medieval Madness. And it sounds like after listening to Rick give his seminar that the LE being a certification agency that certifies the game, as I believe their main thing is safety. And so if you say, like if you're building an amplifier, and you say this is a 40-watt amplifier, they're going to make sure that it actually runs at 40 watts for a certain amount of time without blowing up. So Medieval Madness being an electronic thing, they're getting LE certification, and that's slowing them down right now and getting production actually going. We saw the games, on the line that's being set up at the Stern factory to build them, so they're close. And these games are going to be rolling off the line soon enough. Game looks good. Game feels good. I think you should be very pleased. I think the real story with Medieval Madness is, if they had announced this game this year, if this had been the year that Planetary Pinball came and said, we are teaming with Chicago Gaming to build Medieval Madness this year, and it's $8,000, what do you think the response would be now? Because we have all these games now. We have Lebowski. We have Wrath of Olympus. We have The Hobbit. There's a lot of stuff coming out. And this is, again, it's one of the most sought-after games of all time. It's a game that was demanding upwards of $15,000 in good condition on the open market. But $8,000. A year ago, I was on the fence. I got in real early on the game and then decided to back out. And now I wonder what the response is. Are more orders happening? Are they selling even more of these games currently? I would guess not at a high rate, and that's just pure speculation based on kind of the lack of talk about the game, quite honestly. I feel like the people that are in, people that are out are sort of out, and there will be some people wanting to add one to their collection that'll get them going once they start hitting. There's probably some more conservative people out there who are waiting for these games to actually roll off the production line, get put in boxes, and start hitting people's homes and locations, and then see that then they'll want to buy them. But can they keep up this price point for remade games from the 90s? I think that is the real question going forward. Maybe they can. Maybe they're doing Attack from Mars next, and there's enough people out there that have always wanted that exact game, and they are willing to pay $8,000, $8,500, whatever it's going to be for Attack from Mars. Maybe. Maybe that's not the number anymore. I certainly don't think the number can be any higher than that. So, as far as how Medieval Madness itself did at the show, in the middle. It's okay. I think the game is ready. I think they've proven they can build this game, that it can play great, and people will be happy when they get them. I think that the story's really going to be the next game, what happens now going forward. Alright, so having a pinball company not being based in the United States has a couple of inherent, I think, issues as far as contact with us US-based pinheads, so to speak. Because there's all these shows that we go to, and US-based companies can pick and choose what shows to go to. Well, in the case of Highway Pinball, based in the UK, they've not been able to really come across as much. And with that being said, we haven't seen their first game, Full Throttle, at as many shows as some of the other games. So I think that's part of the reason it hasn't been covered in as deep detail as some other games. I finally got to touch, play, feel, and have some time with Full Throttle at the show. And I got to say, it looks really good. It's a good-looking game. I was curious how the ramp design would actually play out in person. The whole thing plays very fast. It's a very quick-playing game. The first thing most people are going to notice when they walk up to a Full Throttle is, the bottom cabinet is basically same as it ever was, pretty much. The top head portion, however, very different. It's a much thinner, smaller, more sleek cabinet Because let's be real, we don't need all that space in a modern pinball design now for all the board sets that we used to, because everything can be controlled on such a small little board or little system. So they've actually gone with the smaller upper cabinet area. And remember, the full throttle cabinet is meant to be interchangeable with future titles from Highway Pinball. So you buy the cabinet once and you can buy additional games. So I played full throttle. I've been pretty vocal about this theme just being not exciting to me whatsoever. Motorcycle racing doesn't do it for me. When I said on the show the other night that I thought this theme was death and they wouldn't sell 100 in the U.S., I guess I was sort of not thinking at the time that the cabinet and the back box will all be interchangeable with future titles. So maybe that was a little bit short-sighted, and there will be better sales of this, especially with the announcement of their second game. But just full throttle as a standalone, it was okay. I liked some of the sounds. I do like the speed. It was fun. I really liked their lock mechanism. Magnet catches the ball in the back left of the playfield, drops it into the lock. That was really neat. The ramps are pretty cool. Maybe this game's too fast? Possibly. Felt really fast. The screen in the playfield, I really was a fan of this going in because I thought that was a good push forward in game design of having an LCD screen actually in the playfield. It's weird, though, because the first few times you play, you go to look for your scores or you go to look for animations to see what's going on, and you look up at the back box, and it's not there. So it does take some getting used to. I didn't connect with Full Throttle myself. I didn't, really love it. The geometry was okay, fast but okay. The theme wasn't going to grab me. I don't know. I've had some emails a little upset with me for not giving it a more positive shake. It's just me personally. I didn't love it. I think that Highway Pinball's future will not be hinged on Full Throttle, though. I think Full Throttle is sort of their in-house way of design and getting things up and running, getting their platform going, and learning how to build a pinball machine. So at Pinball Expo, they had an announcement, and it kind of took a lot of people by surprise. I think we had known for a while that Dennis Nordman was working with Highway Pinball. And at the show, they announced the next game, which will be based on the movies Alien and Aliens. And that's a big theme. That's like a legit A-list movie theme to me. That sci-fi, one of the biggest sci-fi movies of all time. It's going to be the 35th anniversary edition Alien Pinball with the game design by Dennis Nordman. That's a pretty big deal because now you have a theme that I think connects very, very strongly with a lot of people in this hobby. You have a designer with a great reputation for building fun games and a guy that I think people like. And I don't know if that really matters at the end of the day, but every time you say Dennis Nordman, everyone around you kind of goes, oh yeah, I love that guy. In fact, I met Dennis Nordman at Expo and introduced myself, and one thing he said before, he kind of said, he goes, oh man, I get a little weird about interviews. I said, don't worry, let's just chat for a minute. But he said he's really excited. He seems happy and things are good. So I felt like, good creative vibe coming off of Dennis Nordman if I could get such a vibe in, a minute or whatever. So the announcement of Alien Pinball, they could not show us any artwork or toy design right at this point because they're still working through some of that with the license holders. It sounds like they're not going to be going with the H.R. Geiger hand-drawn art, which is such an iconic, piece of the Alien movie legacy. Looks like they're going to go more photorealistic art. That worries me a bit because I don't want to see Starship Troopers or something like that. I want to see something that's really classic looking, but using the Alien license as the jumping spot for that. And I think it can still be done. Photorealistic does not mean cut and paste on Photoshop. This does not necessarily mean Transformers, but this means just a different approach at doing the artwork. I think you could actually do worse by trying to copy the style of H.R. Geiger and not doing it well. That could be even worse. So, this will be, I think, sort of the make or break for Highway Pinball as far as being successful or not. Because clearly playing Full Throttle, they can build a pinball machine. They're competent at doing it. Regardless of whether or not it's my favorite playing game, it still is very well put together with all the right kind of parts happening and things going on. Having Dennis Nordman on board and his vast knowledge of pinball throughout the decades and just his name alone helps greatly. He did show up with one of the little playfield toys or devices. It was sort of like a multi-entrant unit catch device, I believe. I'm not totally sure on what it's going to do, but I believe based on the drawings that Highway Pinball have now posted on the Pinside forum thread in the Highway Pinball subforum, it is an exit lane, the left exit toy where I don't even know. I'm not exactly sure, but it is shown down there, and it's either going to shoot the ball back up or then shoot the ball out the left out lane. So go check out on Pinside the Highway Pinball subforum, which is in the game manufacturers subforum, and Highway Pinball yesterday released a sketch drawing of the alien design. And they're very clear to say this is not final. This is very early basic playfield layout with some shot descriptions. And what we have is a 4-flipper game. It looks like there's going to be a ramp up the left side, a toy of some sort that will have an entrance that's labeled Alien, Queen, and Airlock, 3 pop bumpers, a magnet toy, which is a face hugger magnet toy, which will pick the ball up and drop it. I believe there's an up kicker in that area. There's also wire forms with an up kicker on the right side near the 4th flipper, the upper right flipper. Then the upper left flipper is just, I think, kind of a weird spot for it myself. Maybe, I don't know. I need to see it. No, I guess that's not too shallow. It looked shallow to me, but it's up above the left sling with returns, to each side. The screen is still basically in the same place, but it does say screen position and orientation on playfield is not final. So I don't think they know exactly what they're doing with the screen. In this thread, there's some really good comments, people suggesting maybe they find a way to integrate the screen a little more artistically and with a little more style into the game than maybe they had done with Full Throttle, where it just seems like, hey, we have an LCD screen and it goes right there. Some people suggesting maybe build it into the artwork, which I'm kind of guessing they will. That's my gut instinct, is just working with a license like Alien, and you have a screen, and if you remember those movies, they're on the spaceship, and there's screens on the spaceship. So there's so much that could be done here. I like the basic look of the playfield. It's nothing like game changing. I mean, they're not like, oh my gosh, it's 4 levels with 17 magnets and 16 flippers. No, it's basic, but with really, I think, smart ideas for toys based on these sketches. These are just sketches. I don't know what it's really going to play like. But nonetheless, this is the shot in the arm I think that Highway Pinball sort of needed. Because I think Full Throttle opened some people's eyes with, hey, look at this company. They've got some cool ideas, but it didn't maybe connect with the force it needed. I haven't heard from a lot of people that were, buying Full Throttle. But now with the next game being Aliens, maybe this sells some Full Throttles, and people are going to buy the second game to go in that. Now you have 2 games. I don't know what the pricing is on the second game as an add-in. That may be posted somewhere. I have not quite seen that yet. I'll be very interested to see how that all pans out. If you go to highwaypinball.com right now, it actually corrected something that I think I said on the show the other night. I was misunderstanding when they announced there would be 500 of these games made. I thought that was it. It was only 500. It's actually the limited edition, the 35th anniversary limited edition that we're talking about. They're building 500 of those. There's also the standard edition. So 2 different games. Pretty significant price increase. The standard edition in the United States looks to be $6,150, and this is all subject to change because currency moves around between the UK and here. So $6,150 for the standard plus shipping and delivering from the US, just like with Dutch Pinball. The same thing with Highway. You're not paying shipping across the Atlantic Ocean. and then $78.50 for the limited edition. And I think that's a lot of limited editions, but I do think this theme probably, I guess, warrants that. I think a lot of people are going to be excited about this theme. But I don't see anywhere when I go onto their website about them talking about the interchange system of their game. With Full Throttle, when you go to the order page on their website, you see Highway Pinball Game Change System, the HPGS. Future game releases can be installed in existing Highway Pinball cabinets. And they promote that as a selling feature. But I don't see any mention of that on the Alien game, so maybe they're not going to do that. I'm just not sure. I'm trying to find you the price right now. In U.S. dollars, the price is $6,000 on Full Throttle, so it's just $150 more for Alien. But I want to know what the price is for a Full Throttle and then an Alien add-on, because I think that's really an interesting thought. Maybe, I think, honestly, $6,150 is a pretty good number for this game to a lot of people out there who are looking at all these $8,500, $9,000 games right now. So we've seen a little bit of a layout. We know it's Dennis Nordman. We know Alien's a cool theme. We've seen Highway Pinball build Full Throttle. I gotta think that they have to be coming out of Expo feeling really good about where they are. I actually very much was trying to talk with Andrew Highway, and every time I would get near him, somebody else was either interviewing him, either with audio or on camera. I know Jared Bakushan from Pinside, who did a great job at getting live streaming going on a lot of the seminars at Pinside, did a pretty extensive interview with Andrew that I haven't had a chance to sit down and listen to yet. Some of my questions may be in that interview. I'll go and look at that. And I know that the Broken Token podcast, I saw them interviewing Andrew. So I'm sure there's a lot of information out there. So if you're one that's interested in either Highway Pinball as a company, Full Throttle as a game, or Alien Aliens as a game, you have to be feeling pretty good about their showing at Expo. Just another big thing happening in pinball right now. So I was walking through the hall areas at Expo on Thursday, and there were 2 games, looked to be pinball machines, wrapped in like blankets, like shipping blankets with, plastic wrapping around them. And I was actually looking for someone, and I noticed these games, and I looked down, and one little edge of the cabinet was exposed. So I could see a little bit of the artwork, and it was clearly something I'd never seen before. Didn't know what it was. So I walked by it for a minute, went and found whoever I was looking for. Then coming back, I saw 2 things of note. I saw John Papaduke sitting in a corner in a chair, watching, as 2 people were pulling back the wrap, so to speak, on these cabinets, these games. And John sort of came up and started talking to him finally. John brought cabinets for the zombie game that he's been developing. Retroactive, that's it. I am going to get this right. I'm going to get this right once and for all. Retro Atomic Zombie Adventureland. Thank you. I've been screwing that up for a while now. So, he didn't bring games, and there was a lot of disappointment. People were really bummed. You can read the Pinside threads. There's people who are in on these games. These games are expensive. These games were announced a long time ago. Money was sent in a long time ago. People were really hoping to see games, and we didn't see games. We saw empty cabinets. Beautiful cabinets. Artwork is gorgeous. We saw a translite. If you go to pinballnews.com, Martin got a nice photo of the translite. And unfortunately, I think that there are people at this point starting to grow weary of where these games are in development. And it's such a weird kind of thing going on right now because you have this designer, this artist in John Papaduke who is really into details. He loves the small things. And he has decided that people are really turned on by the small things. Those will be the difference. Those will be the things that make people really gravitate towards what you're doing. And I think there's a lot of validity to that statement. That it's easy to just throw something together and throw it out there, but if you're gonna be different, if you're gonna be better, you gotta drill down a little bit. Don't just have metal hinges. Have metal hinges with your lightning bolt logo in them. I agree with that. Don't just do nice hand-drawn art. Do really deep, fleshed out hand-drawn art where the color scheme is picked very precisely and that you don't have too many colors. You use the mind's eye to like make it, a certain way. No one is ever going to question the vision that John Papaduke brings at all. However, people are now questioning, do we need a little bit more business involved with Zidware? And not only Retro Atomic Zombie Adventureland, but Magic Girl and I believe Alice in Wonderland as well. Because you can design and make the greatest looking, most interesting theme, the most intricate toys and well thought out layout in the world. You can do all of that. But if the game never comes out, does it matter? Now, if John didn't have the legacy that he has of building fantastic games when he was with Bally Williams, not a ton of games, as he admitted in his seminar. He actually said that. He goes, I haven't really built that many games. But the games that he did build are, classics. If he didn't have that, and honestly, if you look at what he did in between his time at Bally Williams and then now, some stuff that I didn't know about where he worked, with toy companies making these really successful toys, some of them relating directly to pinball. If that all wasn't there, I think a lot of people would already be tapping out on this, would be like, nope, I'm done. But it's hard not to sort of fall in love with his vision when you hear him talk about it in person, because he really believes in what he's saying. He really is doing things differently. He has patents on things like his cabinet and the way it's designed. He brought back the pedestal design of the head of the pinball cabinet, which he really likes because it makes him think of the games when he was growing up playing pinball. The shots of the playfield that we did see in his presentation looked amazing. But when are we going to see these games? I believe the number he was going to build of Retro Atomic Zombie Adventureland back when it was, themed on Ben Heck was actually really, really, really low. Like, just a few. And as he put this company together, and he took in, big money on the pre-orders of Magic Girl and the zombie game, I think he realized that there's a certain scope of what you're doing that doesn't make any sense whatsoever to only build 15 or 16 of something. And honestly, as a designer, I would almost kind of wonder, what does that do for just, maybe he has no ego, but if I'm designing something as beautiful as these games, I would want more of them out there. I would almost feel like all these years of work and all this vision and design is somewhat wasted if I'm going to build 16 of something that will never see the light of day. Maybe occasionally at a show. So I think he's up those numbers. And I'm not in on this because he's kept all this info very tight. It's the way he's chosen to do business. You have to sign a non-disclosure agreement to get on the pre-order list and get one of these games. And I have not seen major leaks of information. Little bits here and there, but they've done a really good job keeping it tight. A lot of the people that are in are really in and believe it's going to be the big payoff, that when these games come out, they're going to be the greatest games ever designed in pinball. And then some people, you've seen now, a couple spots for Retro Atomic Zombie Adventureland are up for sale. So there are some people starting to hit their end with waiting for the J-Pop Zidware games. And that's unfortunate because I do think he's got great vision, but I think he's trying to do all of it. And I think if he could get 15 to 20% more of his world and his company focused on the business side of it, we'd have these games, we'd be able to talk about how great these games are, and maybe he'd be moving on to the next ones, and the next ones. And we'd get even more, and we'd be able to enjoy these games. Because as of right now, I think the idea of a wholly designed and conceived John Papaduke game is awesome. because a lot of people felt Theater Magic, Circus Voltaire, these games were so awesome and would have been even better had, there not been bill of materials costs hampering down John's vision. But does it matter if the games aren't there? So I would say coming out of Expo, not a great vibe for Zidware. We want to see games, and I like John a lot, and John has given me an open invitation to go see his studio, which I would love to go do if I could find the day to get out there and do it. And I hope he'll have me, even though I'm starting to just at least report on the growing dissent that I feel is out there. But I would love to go see the stuff in person, because just as a pinball experience, it's exciting. But as a business experience, I'm hoping that things speed up a little bit and we get there. So if you're in on these games, I would love to hear from you and your thoughts and where you're at, because I know there's some listeners who have money invested here. So that was one of the early things at the Expo show that sort of had people kind of buzzing. It's like, oh, is there a game here to play? And the answer was no. There was no game to play. Got to spend some time with Jerry from Multimorphic. You heard the interview on the show. I got to spend more time playing the P3 platformed game Lexi Lightspeed Galaxy Girl. I played it earlier this year. It did not feel to me drastically different as a game. I think they've cleaned up some of the artwork. They've added in some animations to the screen, and I felt the buzz on this game was actually way better here at Expo than it was, over the last few months just out in the ether. A lot of people, actually, I've had some emails, people saying this was their favorite thing they saw at Expo was Lexi Lightspeed Galaxy Girl. I've also had some people who said to me they thought that this game just isn't getting there as far as like, ta-da, finished product, let's go and do this. I think it's getting closer. I think that there's still some inherent questions to be asked about the P3 platform with the giant video screen as the majority of your playfield. Is it so different from a normal pinball table that people aren't going to connect with it? I think that has to be the major question. Will people embrace the idea of swapping out playfields? Will other people design on the platform? I think these are the questions for Multimorphic going forward. I think Jerry is probably one of the most genuine and hardworking people in the industry right now when it comes to like his project and believing in it. This is what he does every day. I think that he might benefit from some other people having a hand in the actual gameplay design and some of the artwork of what's going on in there. And I know there have been some other people in the artwork, but I'm talking about actually on the play field and what's going on. My biggest complaint, because I love what they're doing. I do like the idea. It's moving things forward. It's different. It's innovative. I love it. It's the kind of thing you could see in a Dave & Buster's someday, right? I want pinball everywhere. My complaint with the game, the actual game, not the system. I'm not talking about the Multimorphic P3 system. I'm talking about Lexi Lightspeed. Is you have this really cool back glass with this high energy like scene set with this kick-ass woman there who's going to be Lexi Lightspeed traveling through the galaxy, right? Galaxy Girl. But when you actually go to play the game, she's nowhere to be seen. There is no Lexi Lightspeed. And I imagine that the answer to that would be you are Lexi Lightspeed. You are playing as the hero. But she's not there. I'm not seeing it. And what I am playing through are these top-down sort of quasi 3D, like it reminds me of Phantasy Star. Phantasy Star or Final Fantasy games, the old top-down role-playing games where I'm seeing the tops of buildings, or I'm seeing the tops of the trees in the swamp, and I'm not really feeling immersed at all in the experience. I think the graphics are a little too last generation. I think anybody who's younger and has a PS4 or a PS3 for that matter, and plays some of these amazing games that come out on these like late model consoles are going to look at these particular graphics and not feel like it's cutting edge. It feels a little last gen to me. It feels like 1999. And I had thought that all weekend, and I was reading through the thoughts that people were putting off on Pinside, and somebody said almost that exact same thing. So if I'm thinking it and someone who I haven't talked to at all is thinking it, I think that could be an issue. I hope they're selling some pre-sale units. I love the project. I know they had the wood cabinet version sitting there next to the steel cabinet. I think the steel cabinet doesn't do it any justice, having the multimorphic game in the steel cabinet because it's too heavy. That part doesn't really feel like pinball. I think the flippers are fine. They're different. They feel really good. But I think that you need to get it in that wood cabinet so that the weighting and you can nudge it and all that is right. I really believe, though, that the design of this first game has some quirks and some issues. So I think total mixed bag coming out of Expo. I thought it was a good buzz for the game. I mean, I saw people playing it the whole time. I've had emails waiting for me to talk about it because they're thinking about buying it. And I think the fact that you can swap out to the future games is going to be cool. I think it would be great if a name designer helped design a game and had some real influence into that. I think that would be a big deal. But interesting time right now for the actual P3 system. Basing off of Multimorphic's P-Rock system, we have other games being built, and I think the Rise of the Big Lebowski game that we're going to see soon being based off P-Rock, and then also this next game I want to talk about having such a positive reception, both going into Expo and actually at Expo, is going to really help P-Rock going forward. And that the game I want to talk about right now is Riot Pinball's Wrath of Olympus. I know we had Scott on the show and we got to talk about it a little bit, but I got to play it a few times. And in fact, Preston from the Game Room Junkies and I spent Saturday night late. It was one of the last things we did, as Preston really wanted to play Wrath of Olympus before he had to go to bed and get to his early morning flight. So we went in and we played it. And it's just a really great game. There's just a lot going on. I think that the design of this game is top notch. I think it's great to see somebody design a game as well received as this right off the bat. That was designed digitally first, as a virtual pinball table. I was not sure at first what I thought of the gameplay, because to start the modes in Wrath of Olympus, you're actually hitting the white stand-up targets, which are kind of on either side of all the ramps and other shots, which to me a lot of times in pinball are used as sort of your, hey, you missed that shot. But that's how you actually get going in Wrath of Olympus, which is cool. I like the way the layout of the upper playfield with the upper flipper is. There's a couple shots up there, and one of them is very difficult, which is good. I think having difficult shots in a game is always sort of a good thing. It's like having difficult modes. You don't want these games to be too easy. Gary Stern is not incorrect when he says easy to learn, hard to master. I think that's a good thing. That's definitely a good thing. Obviously, the artwork of this game is going to sell units. The theme is fantastic. It's flipping well. I talked to Scott as much as I could, asking him where he thought he was going to be as far as getting to these 100 units they need to sell to go into production with Spooky Pinball building these games. He seemed like happy about it, like it was going the way he wanted it to. I think it's absolutely, to a certain segment of the market, the number one independent built game in a lot of people's mind right now. It is expensive. It's not a cheap game. That's going to be a tough price point going forward in that $8,000 and above price point. When you have Jersey Jack building that price point, when you have Stern limited editions coming out in those price points, you have the Big Lebowski in that price point, you have Medieval Madness Remake there, and you have Wrath of Olympus. But in the line of the new P-Rock games there's Dead Pin, there was the Buffy the Vampire Slayer pin, I think there was another couple. Wrath of Olympus feels like a fully fleshed out major game, more so than others, I think. So, definitely a good showing for Wrath of Olympus at Expo, and I'll be looking forward to seeing how that does as far as their pre-order goes. Speaking about Spooky Pinball, Spooky Pinball did not actually have a booth at this expo. They did not bring, their games to be shown, per se, but there were two America's Most Haunted games at the show. One was set up in the free play area. It was actually the first one ever to roll off the assembly line. That one was there in the smaller of the two free play rooms. And then there was the one in the the X-Pin booth, the people that make the display that Spooky's using. And I watched that game get swamped all weekend. People were all over that game. And I only heard one negative comment on America's Most Haunted. somebody that played it when I was around did say they just didn't feel like it was worth the money. When they said that if I compare this to a Walking Dead felt more polished, like just more put together, more finaled off than America's Most Haunted. And America's Most Haunted is obviously a game that's going to be limited to 150 pieces now, they've announced. It's Ben Heck designed, inspired, art, the whole package. It's not like a Stern game, exactly. It's very much an independently built game, and that is part of, I think, what's cool about that game. But I didn't hear anybody, is what I'm trying to say with all my double negatives here. I didn't really hear anybody say the thing didn't play great. And the comment I heard over and over and over again about America's Most Haunted, which is what led me to want to buy the game in the first place, is, man, that game is fun. So many people said it's fun. I think there's really rewarding shots. I think the ghost integration is awesome. I think the callouts are fun. I think it's just a fun game that a lot of people are really enjoying playing, and I think they will probably end up selling out that run of 150. I did hear of other people who made their decision at the show. In fact, one person actually told me, had no idea they'd ever want to buy this game, and then they heard me ranting and raving about it, so they said that got them 70% of the way to wanting it, and then playing it at Expo got them 100% of the way to buy it, so they were going to go ahead and buy the game. So, it was sort of a passive Expo for Spooky Pinball. They were on the podcasting panel with the Gamer Junkies, Broken Token, and myself, so they definitely had their presence there. Charlie is a well-known figure in the community. They look like they're enjoying themselves. I think they just put the game out and let it stand for themselves in those two spots, and I think they did very well for themselves. Will be awesome to see how that game sells for the next few months. Mine should be here soon, so we'll have plenty of time to talk in depth America's Most Haunted soon enough. Those are the major highlights for me. I'm probably forgetting or missing something. I have a ton of notes that I took throughout the weekend. Little, thought to write some things down that I'd want to bring up, and we'll talk about that on next episode. Expo as an event probably deserves a whole rundown on the show. What I thought about it. We'll get into that. Really enjoyed playing in the tournament, in the Classics tournament. I didn't really play in the Modern tournament. We were really rooting there for Gene X Wong to pull out the B division. He finished second in the B division, so congratulations to Gene. That's awesome. The A division tournament was an interesting thing to watch on Papa TV last night. Jorian Engelbrechtsson won that. He beat Trent Augustine out in the finals. Bone Cairns took third place in that. I have lots of thoughts on the tournament and how the coverage of Papa TV was. We had a women's tournament, which was sort of timely because we've been talking about women's divisions and such like that. The women's tournament was won by Alyssa Parks. Congratulations to her. And I believe the juniors tournament, they all breathed a great sigh of relief that Escher Lefkoff was not in the juniors. Kids division, as it was called by some. That was won by a young Nicholas Wina. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say your last name, Nicholas, but congratulations. So much still, floating around, going on, coming out of Expo. Skit-B, very quiet Expo for Skit-B. They brought a Predator machine. They had their Sonic the Hedgehog machine. They had an Experts of Dangerous machine with them that they had locked away under lock and key. I think it was there more to get some input from some other people, sort of a business type thing for them. I felt that we're sort of in between cycles, and I think that's okay. Expo's really odd because everyone feels a lot of pressure to show what they're doing and get stuff ready for Expo, but you kind of have to make that business decision. Is it better to bring my game not ready for prime time and show people that, hey, look what we're doing, and maybe get some pre-orders going based on that? Or is it better to just sit back and wait and show up with a finished product? I tend to think it's better to sit back and wait until you have a finished product. And if you don't get to show it at Expo, the next one's only a year away. So there's more shows coming up. Maybe you want to show your finished product at a different show. Maybe you want to be the company that brings their game to the Northwest show and shows it off there, and they get all the press. Because at Expo right now, it's sort of easy to get lost in the shuffle with all the different things going on. So, interesting times. It's so fun to cover it. I loved being there. I loved talking with people that came up and said they listened to the show. Thank you so much. Thanks to old friends, new friends, non-friends, whatever. It was all good. Had a great time. We're going to sign off for episode 117 of Coast to Coast Pinball. We'll talk to you again very soon.